Hey guys, welcome back to another video. Today we're gonna determine how fine of a sharpening stone you really need. Is it actually worth to sharpen your knives to a mirror finish, or is it enough to just give it a quick edge on a 220 grit stone and be fine? That's what we're gonna look at in this video. This is our test setup for today. I'm using my kitchen knife here and I will sharpen it with this Lenski set. I got 120, 280, 600, 1 and 2000 grit stones. It is important when comparing grits to stay within the same manufacturer ideally, because as I explained in another video of mine, there are three major standards that determine the grit number between the US, Europe and Japan, and they vary by a lot. For example, a European 2000 grit stone is equal to a Japanese 8000 grit stone, so you can see there's quite a lot of variation there. After sharpening, we will compare the edge by doing a paper cut and cutting some tomatoes. I think that should really show the quality of the edge in difference between the different grit sizes. So without further ado, let's get right in. We are now done with the sharpening. I sharpened both sides, obviously, and then I put it on my leather strop to get rid of any burrs. I think it's just fair to do that for every grit. Let's start off with the paper cut. Let's start with the coarsest grit, the 120 stone. And I think that's doing just fine. That's already a really good result after stropping it. Continue with the 280 grit. It's a good result, but I can feel it is a bit finer. Maybe if I put it closer to the camera, you can see on the 120 grit, I get a little tiny bit of fraying on the edges. Sometimes. With the 280 grit, this is completely gone. Now let's continue with the 600 grit. So all the results felt quite good. From the 120 to 600 grit, they all feel very nice. Maybe a little bit of a difference on the paper cut, but I think let's cut the tomatoes and this should maybe bring out the difference a bit more. Start off with the 120 grit. Okay, this is very nice. Let's see if we can get some very fine slivers. Okay, it struggles a bit on the super fine one, so it's not really see-through, and it already started basically pushing it down. Continue with the 280 grit. Obviously very nice on this cut. Nice on this cut, and let's see what is the thinnest piece I can do. Already a bit better. It's starting to get to where it is see-through and I'm not pushing it down anymore. Yeah, this is nice. So there is definitely a difference between the 280 grit and the 120 grit side. I can definitely feel it. 600 grit now at last. These cuts, it's all fine. And then look at the thin cuts. So I messed up there a little bit. Let's get down to the insides. Also very nice. But I actually, if I'm completely honest, after sharpening and stropping, I can't really feel a huge difference between the 600 and the 280 grit. I'm actually surprised that even the 120 grit fared very well in this test. Yeah, don't think I can really, with my skills, really tell the difference between a 600 and a 280 grit sharpened knife. But let's jump onto the higher grit numbers and see if maybe the difference is up there. I'm now done with the super fine grits. So you can see we get a really nice mirror here on our edge. Looks pretty nice in person. And let's test out the sharpness if going up to these super fine grits brings out the difference a bit more. So these paper cuts go without any kind of effort. This is now a really nicely polished knife. Let's cut the tomatoes. Yeah, this is very nice. So you can see it's just basically, if it wouldn't slip, basically the weight of the knife itself is enough to cut very nicely through the tomatoes. Let's test it with the 2000 grit. Yeah, that's also super nice. Again with its own weight. I'm just supporting it on the bottom and it goes through. So let's test out if on the very thin pieces, if we can get better results. If I'm completely honest, I don't think really. Because what now happens is it's actually quite difficult to cut through the outer skin. Now that I think the edge is a lot finer and not as coarse, I don't think it can really break the skin very nicely of the tomatoes. Because once I'm through, it's all good. If I go from the bottom side, this is now a bit difficult to hold, but let's try it like this. And now this is much easier. That's very interesting. And with the other one, it's basically the same. That's a very interesting result, I think. But regardless, all of these edges do very well. But I can't really tell a huge difference. Now we're at the end of our little experiment. And I think the results were very interesting. I didn't expect that there was so little difference between the different grids after we went past the 280 grid point. And even the 120 grid, because if you touch the stones, it is such a huge difference. The 120 grid stone is so coarse, and then on these 2000 grid stones, you can hardly feel anything. If you ran your finger across, you wouldn't even expect it to grind anything. But we could see a visual difference. It was obviously a lot shinier, and if you go for a nice look on a Japanese kitchen knife, for example, then these finer grids, just for the looks, make some sense. These are all on the F scale, on the European one, so this would be equal to an 8000 grit Japanese stone, and it definitely makes sense for the looks. But for actually using the knife, just as an utility knife, I can't really see a point in going much further than a 280 grit, which I'm gonna put the Japanese equal number up there. Yeah, and I think that's the conclusion for the video. If you just need a utility blade and don't really care about the looks, then there's not really much point going past European 280 grit or 300 grit sharpening stone, and then give it a few passes on the data strop. That's always important to get rid of any burr, and you will be happy. that was it for this video. I hope you liked it and found it interesting. If you did, then consider subscribing and giving the video a like, and then I will see you on the next one. Bye bye.